Pavel will be running a short demo on how you can deploy this to the cloud.
You actually can jump right into the cloud without installing all of this locally on your machine, and local installation are prone to errors. So we prepared a nice way of doing it in the cloud. Here's my Enonic cloud console, and here I create here I can create my solutions. And we prepared a template called Next.js demo. So all that you need to do is just to create the Next.js rendering server is just click create here. I will select Europe since I'm in Europe. I need a name. It's gonna be a headless solution, just a name. And we wait until it is created. It takes some time for the solution to be created. So I just wait for it. Yep, here's my solution being started. Let's wait for it to start and verify that that it works. Meanwhile, we can manage the solution and see what we have here. So we have environments, which is basically the draft and the master, which Thomas told you about before. We can manage applications here, and as you can see, there is a Next.js demo application which is pre-installed because this is a Next.js template. So we're going to use this one. There is a domain associated with this solution so that I can access it, and there are routes. Routes are basically aliases for the external URLs to internal URLs inside the solution. So here, for instance, I have a draft route which points this URL to this internal URL inside of the solution. If the solution is ready, okay, that's nice. It is ready. I can access this draft URL, but this one I cannot access because there is nothing here. So I will type GraphQL, which is a GraphQL playground. Yeah, here is the GraphQL playground, where I can run the same queries that Thomas used. For instance, I have a query here already. That is the person query that is used by the person part, and I can test it. The only thing I need to do is supply the path parameter because it uses the I believe it's the path. Go wrong with the GraphQL API.
It probably doesn't remember when you get a new URL problem, so you have to add it again. It's not that important, but you can run a query, right? But you also would have to change. You see this $app_ is like a JavaScript thing that you have to replace with the actual name of your app and stuff.
Yeah, right. But the main point is that you can run this query, and this GraphQL API it is shipped with the application. You just need to keep in mind that you need to append the _GraphQL to reach it. And so this URL, we're gonna need it later to access the data from this application, right? So let's now, since we have this Enonic XP in the cloud and we have these routes that we can access, let's create a rendering server which will be the Next.js server. For that purpose, we are gonna go to the Vercel.com, which is the Next.js hosting, and I can create a new project there. For that purpose, I'm gonna fork the Enonic Next.js Enonic demo repository, and I'm gonna bind this repository to the Vercel project. This is the way Vercel wants you to install a new project. So I'm gonna use my GitHub account. I'm gonna create a fork, and after the fork is ready, I can use it. Yeah, the fork is ready now. I can use it in the Vercel. So I can select my account here. I can add any account and use this repository. Right, we are almost done here. Just one thing to notice. The Next.js server needs a way of knowing where it can fetch data using GraphQL API. So, and the way we can supply it is by using environmental variables. And this is where this GraphQL we looked at before comes in handy. We just will use this GraphQL API and set it to the content API URL environmental variable. So right now, when I click deploy, the fork of my fork that is placed inside my GitHub account, it will be used to initialize a new deployment, and it will display this environmental variable that will point to this Enonic cloud. I need to remember to press this add button, because if you don't do this, it will not end up in the deployment. Right, here we have this API URL variable, and we have granted access for Vercel to our repository. And now it's building and deploying and doing all the heavy lifting for us. And after it's done, it will be able to, it will know how to access the GraphQL that is deployed in the Enonic cloud because of this environmental variable. Let's see here. Yeah, it is building, so we need to wait. It usually doesn't take long, so maybe 15-20 more minutes and it should be ready. Okay,
while it's yeah, okay, there it is.
Yeah, but you can finish your thought, Thomas.
I was just thinking that I figured out my problem. I had disabled all the components in my mappings file for the production server, so that's why you didn't see anything.
Yeah, so, that is why. That is why it wrote in the logs that no view found.
Yeah.
Because you just have everything turned off.
So it started working after changing that.
Yeah. Here we have the deployment ready in 55 seconds, and we have the domain associated with it, and we can click it. So here, what happens here? As you can see, we are on the domain created by Vercel, Next.js hosting. And this Next.js server, it uses the content API URL variable to know where the Enonic headless database is located. Namely, it is here, deployed in the Enonic cloud. And then it goes there, fetches the data, and renders you the preview. This is basically it. We installed both of them in their respective clouds, and they are cooperating nicely.
So the links are working as well. I see there's some links in the text there. So the content.
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, I can download Leah. I just want to verify that this Leah, not Brad Pitt or anyone. This link to some other content. Yeah, everything seems to work. And we are accessing it directly through the Vercel domain. But in order to make a complete installation, we want it to be accessible inside of Enonic Content Studio as well, the way Thomas did it, to be able to edit and add new stuff. So let's go back to the Enonic Cloud. And Enonic XP admin here. Oh, let's go there from here. So this is Enonic XP installed in the cloud. And we have Content Studio here as well. And here is our Next.js demo that we can use. So as you can see, it failed to render the content preview, but why is that? It is really simple because we just told Next.js server where to get data, but we didn't tell Content Studio where to get the view, who we want to render. So it has no one to render right now. To fix that, we just need to go to applications. Here's our Next.js demo application that you saw here that produced this database. And what we need to do here is edit it and supply the Next.js URL variable, which says where to go for the views, basically. And to get this URL, we just go to Vercel and see and look at this domain. So this is the domain of the Next.js server. Here it is in the browser. I'm gonna use this one. Yes, and I'm gonna save it. So right now, both of them, Next.js server knows where to get data, namely where the Enonic XP headless database is located. And at the same time, Enonic XP knows where the Next.js server is located to go there for the views. So it's kind of a closes a circle. And if you go right now to the, I will just reload. Okay.
It can take up to a minute before these configuration changes are live.
Yeah, need to check that I used the right URL here. Maybe this one is extra, just to be on the safe side. It says that configuration is updated and it is being updated right now. So here right now, if I select the headless movie database, you can see that it is exactly the same view that we saw here on Vercel. But this time it is in the Content Studio. Yeah, now this all related to the draft branch. And in order to follow the same pattern Thomas did locally, we want to create the master branch to be available to render it as well. So for that purpose, we need to create another deployment in the Vercel that will be responsible for rendering master branch. And doing that is really simple. You don't have to create a new fork. You don't have to create a new branch in your fork. You don't have to do basically anything. You just use this. You just use the same branch repo you used before, but this time you set the different content API URL, which will point to the master branch. And I'm gonna find it in the routes here. It's called live here. So if I go to the GraphQL to verify that GraphQL API is there, it is not there. Guess why? Because it is not published. But trust me, it's gonna be there. I can publish it right now to make sure, but I will do it later for you to see that it will make a difference between published and unpublished content. So I'm gonna just use this one right now. Live GraphQL, and I'm gonna name this differently.
Remember the add button.
Right, thank you, Thomas. I was about to click deploy. In case you forgot to click the add button, you can still add the environmental variable later, but you will have to redeploy again and wait for it. This is not a fatal error, but will take more time. Okay, it's been built right now. And
We could probably add that everything, more or less everything I did and way beyond that, and also what Pavel is doing here is in the tutorial on our developer site. So if you just go to developer.enonic.com, you'll find the Next.xp tutorial, as we call it, and that should be everything you need to play around and do whatever you like.
Yep. So here's our live deployment, and if we open it, the page is not found. And this is obviously because it fetches the data from the master branch, and this site is not published, so it is not accessible. But if I do the publish now, well, maybe just to be sure, let's try some other pages like persons, bread, pig. I wanted Leah do, but I won't spell it correctly, so I will go with bread pig. It is not available as well. Let's publish the site and see if it makes any difference. Okay, everything is published. And let's reload the page and see. Here he comes, the bread pig, and the demo branch here. Is it still available? It is still available. If I go to the root of the site, just to show the similar outputs, you can see that both of them are here.
Maybe you could also just show that if you make a change now to the draft, so you can see that the draft will be different.
Yeah, right. And as I promised, let's reload the GraphQL playground, and it has appeared here because we published the site, and it is in the master branch called live, and it is available now. Let's do some changes to these guys. Oops. Oh, it's okay. Update this line here. Save it. And we'll go check if anything changed here. This is the master branch, because you can see live here, because I used live domain. And this is a demo. We need to reload it. Updated by Pavel Milkevich. And I guess that's all for today. Basically,
yeah, nice, Pavel. Nice.
to recap everything that we did, we installed Enonic XP in the Enonic cloud from the Next.js template that is available for everyone. So you don't have to do anything basically to start the Next.js server. You just select the appropriate template. And then we installed the Next.js rendering server in the Vercel hosting. Vercel is able to host many more frameworks actually, but in this case, we need Next.js. And then we connected them together. We told Vercel deployment where to get data, and we told Enonic XP server where to get with the view, so they are going in circles. And we also have both branches, draft and master, available for rendering here.
I hope everyone at least got the broader picture. Of course, in this case, we have been focusing on live editing capabilities. But as you hopefully saw, Enonic is foundationally built around content types. So it means you can create your data model. You don't need a page at all. And everything you create can, of course, be used by other clients as well. It doesn't just have to be this website. So, but the huge takeaway here is that for an editor, this feels natural, intuitive, and faster when working compared to if kind of everything is kind of detached from presentation, right? And I hope you all enjoyed it. Are there any more questions?
But first, I would like to add to Felipa Cesar to your question. On top of that, you can split the mappings into smaller files. You can actually also register every component in its corresponding file. So you just define a component in a file like person view, and then you say component registry, add part. That's exactly what we do in the mappings file. So that will get rid of the mappings file. But it's easier, while developing, we felt that it is easier to have a good overview of what you have registered and what views are registered and what pages and parts. And it's nice to have it in one file, unless it gets really big.
Yeah, and for the structure we had for the components, it's also up to you. It's basically our best practice suggestion. So remember, for each component you implement in the front end, you also need to kind of define it in your Enonic app. So like if I want a child list component in Next, you'll also have to create the same sort of the sibling for that in Enonic, so the editor gets something to drag around. So that's linked by a unique name. That's kind of the connection between those.
There is a question from Thomas Lucas asking if we plan to do a training on this.
Also, in terms of training, currently no plans on that. We however, we have built a quite detailed tutorial, and there will be more and more documentation coming, and we will be improving this integration continuously now, and adding more feature as we go and more documentation. And more videos will be coming as well. Will forms work the same way? Well, yes. For instance, forms, there's a dozen ways of doing that. One way of doing it is using the form builder we have in Enonic. And essentially, I'm not sure if it's been fully adapted for Headless yet, but essentially what it is, it's a content type. So you could say, okay, new item, and then you would create a form. And the Next.js frontend could then pick up this form definition and render and input the way you want it to look. So the form could then be kind of submitted, and you could actually store the response back in Enonic. And here's where you start to get more and more advanced capabilities and utilizing them in Enonic, because it's so much more than just the Headless API. The API can be extended and customized, and you can collect data if you like and implement applications if that's the use case. Or you could even store those data elsewhere, of course. But yes, you could make it work pretty much the same way. I see one final question from Max. What happens if you macros? Well, it's not implemented macro support in the component registry yet, but it will be. So that's one of the things we're working on now. So that's going to be out of the box as well.
Yeah, the text editor is already can already boast some smart text processing. So, but we will be improving it, and it will get macro supported sometime.
Okay.
I guess we
yeah.
made it. Yeah, and this
Okay.
is not the final version. It is available, but it is not the final version. So they will be fixed, and more features will be added.
Yeah, definitely making it. But we think it's pretty much like the way we want or imagine people should work is at least outlined here. And remember this Next.js frontend, it's fully customizable. You can do whatever you like with it. I maybe should mention one thing. It's decently optimized in terms of performance already. So it will normally normally it will do 2 requests on a page rendering to the CMS. So that's pretty decent. The first one is just to discover what is on the other end, and then it will combine all the queries for all the components and run them once to get the data. So you kind of save a lot of time from all the round trips. But obviously there's like more stuff here optimizing in terms of caching and whatnot. So we're gonna kind of keep iterating to make this like ideal in terms of making super fast websites.
Yeah, it is really smart under the hood. It combines multiple query into one to save the queries, and also it can use one query to give data to all of the components if they need common data. So it works in both directions.